Welcome back to the Power Performances presented by Courtyard by Marriott alongside our special guest Trev Alberts. I'm Jason Horwitz. Don't forget 646-CBS-1000, 646-227-1000. The first two callers, a $50 gift certificate to CBSSportsStore.com. Get whatever merchandise you want. You know, the holidays coming up and there's some good stuff there. Yeah. All right, on the horn, let's get to the man who needs no introduction, but we'll give him a little bit anyway. Tim Brando, the host of the College Football Today on CBS, as well as numerous other things. He does college basketball. He's got his radio gig every day on Sporting News Radio. And then most importantly, he streamlines with me on Saturday nights on the post-game shows. Tim Brando joining us here on the Power Performances presented by Courtyard by Marriott. Timmy, we're ecstatic to have you aboard. And I know for a fact you spent an extra amount of time here in New York City this weekend doing the musical thing here this weekend.
Well, I'm a man of culture, you know that, and I make sure that the arts, the creative side of me is fulfilled, and especially when I have my 16-year-old Tara with me. So it's a demanding schedule to be artsy as well as sportsy.
I saw you on Sunday. You were dancing to Chorus Line the next day. So.
Well, that and not only, but boy, Jersey Boys, man, was that good. But I don't think you have me on for that, do you?
No,
you didn't want to talk about the high-pitched voice of the lead singer doing Frankie Castelluccio, a.k.a. Valley. You don't want to go there.
No, not today, Tim. Hey, Timmy,
okay.
let's talk about the SEC championship game. That's coming up on CBS this weekend. Florida and Arkansas. It's a game, a lot of people in the SEC are waiting for because Florida, one loss, USC, one loss. Make the pitch that Florida deserves to be, or can you make the pitch that Florida deserves to be in the national championship game if they win and USC also wins? Can you make that pitch?
Absolutely. It's offensive that there are those that want to just completely dismiss that they have a pitch. That's the thing that's really amazing about all of this. And as you know, I've been critical of Urban Meyer for whistling a different tune now that he's in a BCS conference as opposed to when he was at Utah. But his point about, the situation with this the flawed system, big picture is absolutely dead on. If you look at the collective records of the teams that Florida played, they by far have the strongest schedule of opponents. Now, the pitfall is there's no middle ground. They've got great opponents with an incredible number that has them way above even USC, who their opponents would, I believe, rank them at number 5. The collective records of their opponents would rank them number 5 nationally, but Florida is a runaway freight train in terms of the collective record of their opponents. Now, there are those that just want to completely dismiss it because, well, why? Well, you've got USC opposite Ohio State. That's Microsoft versus U.S. Steel. That's a have versus a have. All nice and tidy. That's what the drive-by media in sports wants to have you believe. But if you love college football and you know it, this is just as mythical a national championship game as every other one that's been played in front of it. Absolutely.
Timmy, you and I have talked numerous occasions about this whole BCS, and I think it's ironic, Tim, that Roy Kramer was sort of the architect of the whole BCS system. And I know it's changed an awful lot, but in your opinion, is the current system really almost unfair to the SEC the way it's set up?
Yeah, it really is. And I think, Trev, you make a wonderful point. I think and I gave Roy Kramer a lot of credit for at least having the idea of having a championship game, when in effect, what it effect becomes is what? A playoff game. And that's what he had in mind. And I think in 1992, when his conference extended to 12 teams and they added Arkansas and South Carolina and broke into divisions, the idea of that championship game becoming bigger than anything besides the national championship game, that's really what it did. The atmosphere in an SEC championship game, if you've never been, is as great an atmosphere as you'll find anywhere other than the 1 versus 2 BCS national championship game. The problem is, I think he felt that by this time, the Big Ten would have gone to 12 teams, and had it not been for Notre Dame opting out, they would have. They'd be having a championship game. I think he felt, as a visionary, that by now everyone else would have gone to a conference championship game. That simply has not happened. And because of that, it is unfair to his constituency that in the SEC. And the amazing thing is watching the bureaucratic fence straddling of Mike Slive, now the commissioner of the SEC, who is in the barrel, so to speak, as the spokesperson for the BCS, having to fend off Urban Meyer's verbal attacks that are taking place this week. I find that really funny to watch and listen to as we get ready for the championship game. But you can't blame these coaches for lobbying and filibustering, because the opportunity to win a national title, even though it is mythical in college football, fellas, doesn't come around that often. And when you have a chance, your agenda is going to be a little different than a conference commissioner or an athletic director.
All right, Timmy, let's get to the calls. A couple of people on the horn want to talk to you about college football. And don't forget, the first two callers, $50 gift certificates to cbssportsstore.com. And here's number one, Mark from Virginia. And you're on the horn with Tim Brando. What do you got for him, Mark?
Hi, Tim. Why is Michigan being ruled out for the title game, considering they lost to the number one team and they didn't lose to a team below it in the rankings? It seems like they're being punished for having lost that game.
Well, they are one of the corporate monsters of college football, too. If USC obviously had lost the game to Notre Dame, or if the game had been more competitive, maybe there would be more discussion about Michigan. They slide right back in my opinion, if USC loses. That's one of the reasons why I think Urban Meyer is being so verbose this week, because Arkansas getting a second loss torpedoed his chances in the computers. So Michigan slides right back in if Carl Durrell and the Bruins can pull off the upset. But that's the reason why Michigan's not being mentioned as much right now. You know, as I said before, college football is probably from a mass media standpoint the most misunderstood of any of the sports out there. And so if you tell a columnist, oh, well, we got USC opposite Ohio State, they go, oh, that's fine, good, we'll watch that, no problem. There's not a problem. But the facts of the matter are there's always a problem.
Hey, Timmy, one more call here, and this is probably on your favorite topic. Craig in New Jersey, he wants to talk about a college playoff system. Hey, Craig, what do you got for Tim Brando?
What do you think will happen in terms of the college playoffs?
Nothing. There will be no playoff. You know, this time of year, Trev, you get it too, I'm sure. We all do. Emails from people. Here's my plan. We'll take 16 teams. We'll have 1 versus 16. They'll play in the Cherry Bowl. And it's not going to happen. If you know anything about the history and the tradition of college football, the bowl system, one of the reasons why Roy Kramer did what he did was to protect the sanctity of the bowl situation. And what they also did was get tie-ins that run 9 deep into these conferences in the SEC, about 8 deep in the Big Ten, 6 deep in the ACC. I believe it's 5 deep now in the Big East, and on and on and on. So they're all involved. The trickle-down effect of the BCS goes all the way down to the non-BCS bowls with the bowl tie-ins with the conferences. The only thing we can hope for, okay, are bad matchups in the BCS. And we're going to have them in at least 2 of these games.
At least 2 of the
Michigan's going to play LSU, and that's a good move by the Rose Bowl. That's smart. We didn't need to see Notre Dame get hammered again in that matchup. They could have taken Notre Dame. They're not going to do it. But what we are going to see is an ACC versus Big East champion in the Orange Bowl. Who cares about that? Boise against Oklahoma. I can just see people running to the television set to see that game. What we need are bad matchups, bad ratings, the advertising revenues to be down for what the people that are currently broadcasting the games want, and then to have that television financial well-run dry so that they are forced to give us some form of elimination as part of the formula. And I've always stated that I wanted the 4 winners of the 4 BCS bowls, blow out the and 1 game, and let's have a Final Four in college football. The first step, though, fellas, is a +1 game. We have to start there, and once they see the revenue that they can reap from that, then they'll recognize that we need to have a Final Four in the end. But we're not going to have a full-scale playoff. It will not happen in our lifetime.
Yeah, just as you said, Timmy, it is all about the almighty buck in this case.
Yeah, and you know what? I would say the same thing if CBS had the contract. It has nothing to do with the network that's broadcasting the game. At some point, those of us in our business have to take responsibility for this being in existence. And the BCS was a step in terms of getting the Big Ten and the Pac-10 guys to play along. But if you look at the last 8 years, what has the BCS done? What are the accomplishments of it? It's accomplished getting the Rose Bowl and the Big Ten and Pac-10 to play along with everybody else. But that's it. It's done nothing else, and the championships are just as mythical as they were before.
Yep.
All right, Tim Brando, thank you very much for your time. The man who knows everything about college football. We appreciate it.
Or thinks he does. Yes.
Thanks a lot, Timmy. We'll see you.
Good talking to you guys. Be good.
We'll see you on streaming video on Saturday night, Tim. And, of course, you can catch...
All right, bye-bye.
See you, Tim. And, of course, you can catch Tim Brando every Saturday afternoon on the College Football Today on CBS. And this week, a doubleheader, Army-Navy, the 2:30 game, and the SEC championship game between Arkansas and Florida, and 6. All right, folks, you've been flooding our email box all afternoon, and we're going to hit those emails right now. We're actually going to jump ahead here. And, we talked about this. Boise State. This coming from Jack in Eagle, Idaho, and he says, does Boise State deserve a shot at the national championship? Trev, you've been out, to the western part of the country, the mountain area. You've seen teams in the Mountain West Conference this year and some of the other mid-major conferences as far as college football goes. Does Boise State deserve a shot?
Here's what I think is hurting Boise State. A lot of people remember last year when Boise State went to Georgia and they got hammered in Athens, and people said, see, that just proves they can't play with the big boys. I think it's different. I think this team is undefeated. I think they're a good team. Ian Johnson's one of the best running backs in the country. The point is this. Could they play in the SEC or the Big 12 or the ACC through a 12-game schedule and remain undefeated? Of course not. But on a one-game schedule in a neutral field, do they have a chance? I think they do. The point is this. If you had an 8-team playoff, right now, Boise State is sitting number 8. So you say, here's your chance. Here's Ohio State. You play them one-on-one, see what happens on the field. My point is simply this. How can you look young men in the eyes in August, ask them to pay the price that they pay, run the stadium steps, do all the hitting they do, and say, no matter what, son, you have no shot at ever being a champion? To me, that's not sport.
No, it's not fair.
It's not fair.
It's not fair. College football, the only sport that takes away the George Mason type run like college basketball had, and it's unfair. But if we get that system one of these days, maybe we will get a chance to see a Boise State make a run. This year, they did happen to beat Oregon State, and they hammered Oregon State, and you do remember Oregon State beat USC, but you could do that for everybody. That somebody beat somebody, and somebody beat you. All right, folks, let's go to the next email. We're going back to the NFL. This one coming from Melissa in Morristown, and she writes, can the Giants make the playoffs with all of their injuries? If yes, how far can they go? And, it's not so much just the injuries right now. Now have the Giants as a team now have to overcome adversity. There's arguments in the locker room. There's guys going to the media instead of going to Tom Coughlin. There's Tom Coughlin going to the media instead of going to his players. And now you're coming off a loss where you just had the worst fourth quarter collapse in franchise history, blowing a 21-0 lead. I don't think they can.
Well, I'll tell you what, Jason, you paint a very glim picture or gloom for this team. But I'll point out this. Of all the things that have happened to this team, and you mentioned the injuries, Eli Manning's not playing well, the inevitable comparisons of Phillip Rivers and how maybe they took the wrong guy. Understand this. They're playing at home against the Dallas Cowboys this week. It can all be righted. You beat the Cowboys, and all of a sudden they're right back in the race. They're tied because they hold all of the tiebreakers because they'll have swept the Cowboys.
The Cowboys are the best team in the NFC.
I think they are the best team in the NFC. I'm just saying this. That's what the beauty of sport is. You can be down. You can have a terrible game. Eli can be questioned. And the next week, you can rise up as a team, have a great week, come together as a unit, and beat a very hot team like the Dallas Cowboys. That's what sport is, and that's what's great. That being said, I don't think it's going to happen. I think the Giants are reeling right now, and I think that Tom Coughlin, look at his history. He's a terrific coach, but there comes a point when his message starts wearing thin, and guys like Michael Strahan and Tiki Barber sit back and go, what? What's he yelling at me for? I mean, I'm a veteran. I've been in this league, so I think, I think it's starting to wear a little thin on the veterans.
Yeah, and the injuries, as that email said, that is a huge aspect. There's nobody left on the defense for that team to throw out there, and against the Cowboys, you need it. Yeah. All right, folks, we talked about Boise State and the run that they may make, and they will be in the Fiesta Bowl, and we talked about that. And I mentioned George Mason and the run that they had last year. We're going to have a little special power perspective here. Butler. And I know you may not know where Butler is. It's in Indianapolis. It's a school that you may remember for the one that lost the close game to Florida in the 2000 NCAA tournament. And, of course, Florida went on to the NCAA finals game that year. This school, this team, and I know you know it very well because you know the athletic director there, this team won 6 straight to make it, 6-0 on the season now, but they won 4 straight, 2 to make it to New York, 2 in New York, all underdogs, all over big boys, and they won the preseason NIT, the NIT season tip-off. Let me just run down the schools here. Notre Dame, Indiana, Tennessee, Gonzaga, all games they were not supposed to win. And a little man named A.J. Graves had 26 points in the championship. Butler, let's put it this way. They didn't think they were going to make it to New York. They won the championship game on Friday, and on Saturday they had to be back in Indiana to play a game against Kent State, so they didn't expect to be in New York. It's a great story.
It's a great story, and Barry Collier, who used to be the head basketball coach at the University of Nebraska, leaves. He was under some pressure there.
Yes,
obviously, they didn't know whether he was the right fit there at Nebraska, so he leaves to go back to his alma mater to become the athletic director, and as you mentioned, he kind of made that decision, saying, well, there's no way we're going to get all the way to New York. Let's make sure we have another game. But that's sport. That's what's neat about college basketball, in my opinion, is because you can have a group of guys come together and go on a unique run. And I think that'd be neat to see if Boise State in football could go on that same run. I think it'd be fun, and people love an underdog Cinderella.
Yeah, and don't forget one thing. The bad thing for Butler, the only other team to win the NIT season tip-off that wasn't from a major conference, that was Ohio in '94. They didn't make the '95 NCAA tournament. Hopefully we'll see Butler there. They're number 19 now in the AP poll. Folks, it's been a great show. We appreciate all the calls, all the emails, of course, Tim Brando, and to the two callers. Good luck. Hopefully you enjoy your $50 gift certificate to cbssportsstore.com. Thanks to Trev Alberts. Glad to have you back. Iron Eagle will be back next week. Hopefully we will see you again when Iron hits the road later.
And the show will be much better next week.
You did a great job, folks. Thank you very much. For Trev Alberts, I'm Jason Horwitz. Take care.